Thank you so much, Sonia, and thank you everybody for being here. It's great to see you all, especially many students as we are seeing. As Sonia said, my name is Silvia Duarte and I am representing Fundación 11. It is a pleasure for me, it's an honor to be here with all these panelists, Gerald and Alice, and I will introduce them later as they deserve. Right now, only like Sonia said, this panel is framed in one project that is the Uni for All network. So if you allow me, I would like to explain a little bit about the project, and then I will introduce the panelists, and you are going to see how this matches, right? The panelists and also the project. I don't know. Okay. He's complaining if I was moving. Okay, so, and to explain the project, I would like to explain a little bit about the context. Why we created this project, why we thought that this was important. And the truth is that I work in Fundación 11, Spain. It's an organization that aims the social inclusion of people with disability in all levels, especially in accessibility, training, education, and also in employment. And I work particularly in the area of programs with universities. So in that area, we do a lot of research because we want to understand better the situation of people with disability, of students with disabilities. And in 2004, we had a research on students with disabilities and international mobility programs. So were they taking these programs? Were they participating in them? And it was, the results were really heartbreaking, I would say, because then we understood that only 0.1% of the students with disabilities that were enrolled in the university in Spain were participating in international mobility programs. Of course, I am sure that you are making these questions in your head. So why? What was happening? And I'm sure that many of you have answers to that, right? So the issues were financial support, the lack of adaptations, also the lack of resources in the host universities, and of course, well, they were talking also about housing. It was really difficult to find housing. And today I was talking with one student that was participating in a mobility program, and I was telling him, I will talk about this and this, and he said, well, something that is really important that you mentioned, besides all the factors, is that it's really fear and uncertainty what we face. And so based on that, and knowing that it's really different from one country to another country, from one university to another university. It's a lot of disparity, it's really uneven. So because of that, we decided to create a project. The project, the name is, the entire name is the European Network of Inclusive Universities, and the nickname is Uni for All Network. And for that, we needed great partners. It's Erasmus Plus project. We needed great partners, so we were looking for universities and organizations, but also for people that they really were experts in disability. So we partnered with 7 universities, 3 from Spain, 1 from Poland, 1 from Finland, 1 from Italy, and 1 from Portugal, the University of Porto. And the person we were looking for was Alice Ribeiro, and Alice was partner of the University of Porto, was partner of this project. And Alice is going to tell us later a little bit more about the project. So, well, we also partnered with the EDF, that is the European Disability Forum, and of course we were the coordinators, Fundación 11. What we did in this project, I will try to be brief, This project lasts 2 years, so it's really difficult to be brief. You can imagine how many things we have to tell, but I will try to be brief. So first of all, we started with a guide of standards. We wanted to provide a tool to the universities to enable them to evaluate themselves and to see how they were doing, what they were doing good, what was so-so, and what they were not doing at all. So we came with this tool of 37 indicators. Before we came with four dimensions. The dimensions were policies of the universities. Accessibility is there, for example. We also came with welcoming the students. That was another dimension. The third dimension was the life of the students, the university life. And then was the last one was post-graduation, basically employment, right? So based in these four dimensions, we create indicators for each, and we came with 37 indicators. And so for each indicator, we have measurements. So at the end, we can see if the universities were on the standard, below the standard, or above the standards. We create an automatic questionnaire, a tool, so the universities can complete the questionnaire and then see if they were in each indicator, if they were in the standard or where they were, right? And something that is really important is we were not grading the university. We were not trying to say, hey, you are doing bad. No, that was not the reason of doing this. Like I said before, it was a self-evaluation. But we know that sometimes when you are answering this kind of questionnaires, you can say, well, I have that. Right? It's accessible. All the university is accessible. But maybe you are not doing a real reflection on the matter. And if you do, you can see that, well, I don't have evidence to show this. That's why we asked for evidences, to allow the university to understand better what they were doing and how were they doing. And so we had 64 universities that joined the project and that were responding and completing this questionnaire. And one of these universities was the University of Dublin, and Anne O'Connor is here today, and she's gonna be talking about this experience too. And then we created, with all the responses of the universities, we created a guide of inclusive universities, so the students can see what the universities offer, if it's good for them, if fits the needs they have. But also it's good for other universities and also for the administration, right? It's a really interesting project. We also created training programs for the universities, and we also created a web platform that allowed the students to be interactive. It has a lot of filters. You can filter by country, for example, and see what universities are good for you in, I don't know, in Finland, for example. But something that I didn't say before is that we had representation of most of the countries of the European Union. So that was a good thing for us to have. Well, I have to say that before I introduce the panelists, the project is alive. We finished it as Erasmus Plus project 1 year ago. We are trying to update, to allow the universities that already participated to update the information they gave us, so they also can see what they were improving or whatever they consider they can do in the future. And we are going to share with you in the chat. You can see the link of the project, and also you are going to see a link for a meeting we are going to have, because we wanted to do more things with this project, and it's going to be great to do it in consensus, to know what do you think, what are the next steps that we need to do. So you are going to find a link in the chat too. And so now I would like to introduce all the colleagues that are here. And I would like to introduce first Alice Ribeiro. Since 1997, Alice is a team member of the Inclusion Office at the University of Porto. She was coordinator of BAES, Open Library of Higher Education, an online database of accessible information produced and made available by 10 higher education institutions. And she's also the coordinator of Places, Accessible Platform, a webpage with tutorials in text and video that teaches in a simple and practical way how to produce accessible information for everyone. She's also, like I said before, she was participating, representing the University of Porto in the EU for All project. So thank you for being here. And my next guest is Anne O'Connor. She has over 25 years of experience working in the field of disability and is currently the head of disability and learning support service at Dublin City University. A graduate of UCD with a degree in social science and a master in social policy. She has grown the service in the Dublin City University from supporting 150 students to now supporting over 1,400 students. A primary focus for Anne and for her team is the use of technology to ensure students maintain their learning independence and to progress universal design for learning within the university. And the last panelist, but not the least, is Gerald Craddock. Dr. Craddock is the Chief Officer of the Centre for Excellence in Universal Design, a body established by the Irish government in 2007. A key area for the Centre is advancing universal design in education at all levels, from classroom to national policy and legislation. The Centre's work extends to leading on the revision of European and international standards and in advancing the development of new universal design standards. He is also past president of the Association for Advancement of Assistive Technology in Europe, an organization that recognizes the interdependence of universal design and assistive technology. The Centre's extensive website shows the broad coverage it provides in terms of both policy and practice to bridge the gap between knowing and doing. So thank you so much for being here. And I think that I would like to start with Alice, if that's okay. And so, Alice, maybe you can walk us through all the discussions and all the research we did in the project to came with these 38 standards. That was not an easy path. And so maybe you can tell how that process was.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation, for the opportunity of being here and sharing all the experiences we have within this project that now is actually a set of products that are available to everyone that wants to go into the web page and use them as they please. So it was really a complicated step. We started, of course, with a great team of specialists, so people that were into the field. They were working this area for several years. They were researchers also. They were researching this subject. And of course, we started with literature review. We started to see what the authors say, what studies say about this, and what were the main areas or the main subjects that we had absolutely to include within a product like this. So first of all, we came up with 400 indicators. And then we started from that point trying to realize what could be absolutely necessary, and also that would fit such a diversity of realities within, at least that was our main focus, the European Union and the European universities. So we went through all that. We reached this finally. We then got it from 400 to around 200, and then we tried to filter a little more, and we got this to this, as Sylvia mentioned, this 37 indicators. And we did not only stayed with this 37, but we tested them. So we gathered a group of experts outside the group that was the partners of the project that were building this, were making this effort and this exercise. And we went to them and questioned them on how important and if we had actually made the right choice on having this 37 indicators. And we received a lot of input that was very useful to rearrange and rephrase. And then, of course, we could count in the next step with the participation of a lot of other universities that were already mentioned here, that help us to test and to realize if it actually was something that was helpful and that was interesting. I think I covered the...
Yeah, I think that was a good coverage of the situation. And so, Anne, we were talking about all this process of coming with the standards, and then we asked many universities, yours was one of them, and we asked you to someone that maybe you know just a little bit, ask you, hey, do you want to join this project and do you want to self-evaluate your university? And you say yes. That was a challenge. And also, like we were saying before, it was not really easy. It was an easy tool, according to Alice and to me, but it was really time taking. How do you say that? Time taking. Because we were asking to go through 37 indicators and also provide evidence and observations. If they have comments, they have to fill it. So it was not easy, and you say yes. So the first question is why you said yes and why you thought that was important. And the second question is, once you did it, how was beneficial for your university?
Okay, so again, thanks very much for having me here today. I was thinking back on the survey and how wonderful it is, and it was really very valuable. And when we were chatting about coming here, you mentioned, I think, the word difficulty or challenge, and then I realised I'd forgotten how much work went into it. It's a huge, extensive survey, but I was lucky in that I completed it, but I had the knowledge, because I'm 18 years in DCU, so I had the knowledge of all the areas that you were asking. And if there were gaps, I was able to reach out to our communications team or to our estates team. But by and large, I had a lot of the information. Why did I do it? Very, very simple, to give the student the information that they need. We also would see that students with disabilities are not travelling on Erasmus from our university. We are getting a small number of students coming to us. Now, that has actually grown this year. I don't know if it's anything to do with the survey, but our students with disabilities are not taking Erasmus, are not going out there. And we're always trying to find ways to make it easier for them. And this was just an absolute, there was no question I was going to fill this out. So to provide the student with the information that they would need to make those very good decisions. Like, we have had students go abroad in the past, and we've reached out individually to universities, but it's potluck what university we're linked with, and then you're hoping the supports are there, where this was just, as I said, there was no question I was going to complete it for our students, to help the students who are travelling and also the students that were coming with us, to have that one-stop shop. You also mentioned, Sylvia, that the reflection piece, and that's really what it allowed me to do as well, was to look outside of the service. I've many years there, as I said, and sometimes you're too long in a place, you don't see the gaps outside or inside, or you don't see the progress other units across the university have made. And this survey allowed me to sit back and go, oh, well, we have made progress there, or no, there are some gaps that we really, really need to work on. So that piece allowed us the reflection piece. And then also, you were talking as well about, it's not rating the university. It's not saying, oh, you're very bad or you're very good. It just allows you that self-reflection piece. We work very closely within Ireland with other universities and the disability services. We've a very strong network there for 25 years of disability officers. And so we work, the services we deliver are very similar standards. So we know we're doing well because we meet so regularly and we have standards and I've worked on policies. But what this allowed me to do was look outside Ireland and to really look and to see, oh God, there's some ideas there we haven't thought of, and it's opened my mind. You've no idea how much it has opened my mind in the last year and a half, even to looking outside and saying, okay, well, what's happening? You know, as a result of this project, I was in Salamanca last year. Thank you very much. But I also linked up with Justina in the Disability Service in the University of Dansk. And we visited there just in May to look at what they were doing, and they came to visit to see what we were doing.
Great.
And Justina's services, and she won't mind me saying this, is a much younger service than ours. So they're 7-8 years, I think, going, where we're 25 years plus. And you think, oh, a new service and an old service, sure, we know it all. We didn't, and we don't. And it showed, like, I get excited actually about young services because they're not embedded as much as we are, and that they don't have to shake off as much of the restrictions that we have. And then also Justina was doing stuff in sport that we've never looked at, and something. So this project has been huge, really, and not just for myself, obviously for the team, because it has allowed us to look outside of our own service, both locally but actually internationally as well. And that networking piece has just been key. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I don't want to say words coming from you, but you were saying different and really important things, but I will say something that we not reflect that much is how important is to work as network, right? Like you were saying, your experience with the University of Dance. And so thank you so much. And Gerard, first, thank you for being here. And, you know, in the project, when we were talking about the policies in these dimensions I was talking before, we were talking about physical accessibility, for example, how do you say it?
Cognitive communication.
Also, so we were talking about this like as indicators, but how the role of universal design plays in all the work that the universities do, and especially about accessibility. So maybe you can enlighten us about those issues.
Very good. Thank you very much. I have a short presentation, so...
No, I'm sure that we have it ready, and they are saying it's ready to go.
So I think the clicker there, I think we'll just explain, I suppose, for people who may not be familiar with universal design. Another term in Europe is design for all, and in some parts of the world the term is inclusive design. So so answering your question, looking at it from a systems perspective, we see universal design as good design. So how do we ensure from day one that it's inclusive, that we have all the key stakeholders as part of the process, that our students, the lecturers, but also the wider community, I think we see is very important. So just to give a snapshot of what we're talking about, we're one of the few countries that have actually put universal design into national legislation. So the three key words that we talk about when we talk about universal, we talk about can you access, so can you access education, can you understand it, so the materials, the signage within the physical environment, and can you actually use the whole environment. And when we talk about the whole environment, we're talking about the technology, engaging with the lecturers, etc. So that was kind of the fundamental step in Ireland on having that within legislation from day one. Centre was set up in 2007, myself, and I'm clicking to go forward, and there we are. So just think, did I go too far now? Back again. So again, just relating it to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, clearly states that universal design is the best approach. So looking at it from a whole education environment perspective, and again, what we see critical in our work is involving the local community. And we're beginning to see universities remove the outer walls of the university, now becoming very much part of the community, which we see as a fundamental step in the right direction. Again, it's about the whole person, and again, it's creating these learning friendly environments. So very much embedded within the UNCRPD, and one of the reasons why the term in Ireland is universal design, that is the term within the UN Convention. Again, as Emma presented earlier on from the Commission, a great example of new legislation that we all have to implement is the European Accessibility Act. So we've created this over the years, looking at it from a systems perspective, and very much, as Anne mentioned, we met many years ago when I was doing my PhD, and this was very much part of my PhD thinking, was looking at it from a human ecological framework. Famous professor who developed this framework. We have all heard of the macro, meso, micro. So at the macro level, we have now a European Accessibility Act, which is policy. We need to get it into legislation. And Emma also mentioned that there are several standards that need to be developed on underpinning that piece of legislation. Key part of our work is looking at certification in our own centre, but also from a national perspective, it is part of our process, and developing codes of practice. How do you actually ensure that what is being said is being implemented? And then, of course, critical are developing the tools and resources very much at the micro level. So we talk about the 4 pillars within education at an institutional level. Got to get the building environment, and that again is transport. How do students get from their own homes to the university and vice versa? The technology infrastructure, is it accessible? The whole teaching and learning, we hear about universal design for learning, but critical part and a significant part of the EU Accessible Hub is creating content, which is a key part of the work that we're doing in this network, the EU Accessible Hub. And again, how do we build that into assessments? And finally, then the whole services and supports Anne mentioned within her own university are critical part for someone to successfully integrate and be part of the whole education process. So interesting looking at what's happening and what's not happening at education. Bloom's taxonomy we have all heard of, and particularly the whole cognitive mental skills from 1956, hard to believe as such a long time ago. By the way, I was not born back in 1950. Like that to be noted.
57.
2 domains hardly ever mentioned of, which is talking about the affective domain. And we see this, particularly as I talk about one of our projects, is that whole emotional engagement, not only the lecturers themselves being involved in the university, but the students. And a key element we're seeing over the last couple of years is the whole area of mental health. It is becoming one of the biggest topics when we're engaging with universities and particularly with students. And also then the psychomotor domain. Not hearing a whole lot. Again, we're seeing a lot happening in the whole area of apprenticeships, which we see as a huge area of growth, particularly for young students with disabilities, that they don't have to think about going to university straight off. They can go through an apprenticeship program. So I think important things that we're missing in our education are we're seeing. And again, just on the emotional response, this was the Universal Design Conference we held in Dublin in 2018. And this was a key phrase on putting the conference together. What you see on screen is the cover of the proceedings, which are a series of masks, we had 250 masks produced by the students. And so we had a big ball and everyone could take a different mask. which was to project what they thought of themselves and then removing the mask to actually say, well, who I really am. So that was the concept. And one of the quotes here on screen is, our response must be emotional. We must feel the need for change and challenge our own values, beliefs and assumptions. So back to that affective domain that I mentioned previously. Again, where did we start? We started with practitioners, lecturers out there, but then we found very soon in our work that we needed to engage directly with the higher education institutions. They told us we were too late, you need to be talking to second level. We talked to second level, they said you're too late, you need to be talking to primary. So we've been starting with our work in introducing universal design and concept of diversity, inclusion, right at primary level and working through the levels. But that was experience we found just working directly. So almost there. This is a project which we presented last year, and a number of the network came to Dublin. It's our grand challenge for students who are in their final year of third level education. It's a great night. It was last Wednesday, last week actually, in Dublin. And what we found, just looking at last year when we actually did a Wordle on the submissions, we had over 80 projects that were submitted from right across the universities in Ireland. So disabilities, women was a key term. You see mental health, again, being very prominent. Also invisible, talking about invisible disabilities. So extremes, again, a term that came up, ADHD. So, and then just to finish, one of our keynote speaker from last year, Dr. Lara McNutt, who was involved with the conference in 2018, he talked about, at its core, universal design challenges to step outside of our comfort zones, confront uncomfortable truths about inequalities in our systems, and think about the world not from the standpoint of the average or normal user, but from the extremes. So looking at the extreme users, we designed the extremes, we inspired the mainstream, one of our catchphrases. Lots of information available on our website that is free, and hope that was useful on explaining universal design and some of what you were asking there, Sylvia.
Yeah, it was. And I wanted to ask you about the certification of the universities that you were talking about briefly. What has been the biggest challenge in that process?
What we would see is understanding systems change from a university, and particularly talking to lecturers. They're very much involved in their own discipline, and if we're looking for change at a university level, we need to see what does change look like. And I think it's something that we don't like. I did not learn it in my primary degree. It was in my postgrad programs that I found out about what change is and how to affect change. So,
what you were saying about thinking from the extreme, well, I think that society in general, we think about from what is normal, what is ordinary, but I will say, and please forgive me, but I will say that in universities that's particularly an issue, right? Because we are thinking about the students that we want academic excellence, and from there we are thinking from the middle point and not from the extremes, right? So that's why I think it's very important. Thank you.
And a phrase we use, it's normal to be different.
We are going to take it alongside with the phrase of, sorry, but this complaining with, can you hear me? They are telling me, okay, now I will do this kind of thing. So, well, I would like also to continue, if I find my notes, to continue with Alice. And Alice, I would like to know better what challenges you have found when we try really to harmonize all these standards in the universities of Europe, because we are not talking locally, we are talking in Europe. So can you talk a little bit about those challenges that we have faced in the project?
Okay, so I'll try to. Sorry. Okay, so I think you can hear me, right? Good. I won't touch it anymore. Okay, so that was really a very big challenge because, of course, universities, even in a small country like Portugal, we see that cultures and practices within higher education in Portugal, they're so different. They work in so different ways. And when we thought about Europe, then that was really challenging. That's why, and as I explained before, we tried really to stick to the most universal, so to speak, subjects, and also, on the other hand, the aspects that really had a great influence on people's lives within higher education. And of course, we felt the need, for example, in establishing this dialogue with these standards and trying to gather all this information from different higher education institutions in almost every country of Europe. We were lucky to have people in from all these different places and universities from all these different places. We felt the need, for example, to build a glossary of terms, so we could guarantee that everyone was actually answering to the same thing. And of course, the something that we also added, so to guarantee that we were talking about the same things, was this thing that was mentioned before, which was evidence. So it was not only enough to say, okay, we do this or we don't do this, but we also ask universities to show us, to explain in some sense, either by text or even by photograph, using video, using different supports that would help us to really know that we were talking about the same thing, but also and especially to help students that were just using that information to see, okay, I'm going to this university because I feel they have the conditions I need in order to work there. And so they gave students also, or this aspect gives students the information they need in order to make a decision. Even if those universities did not have the most perfect conditions regarding different aspects, they showed what they have. And that was really a very good thing, because students could make an informed decision on where to go. And the aspect that was mentioned before by Sylvia, this fear of going to a new place, this fear of not being sure of what they were going to find. I think what we built and the way universities answered helps to at least diminish a little bit this fear and to make students more confident on what they were going to find. And that was a very interesting thing. Of course, it's not interesting to, everyone has the same thing and we try to build to be the same everywhere. That's not good. I mean, we are aiming at diversity, but it's really good that we can all state what we have and be clear on the different aspects and talk about the same things when we're addressing an aspect, be making sure that we're talking about the same thing. So I think that I covered a little bit what you asked.
Something, if it's okay for you, I would like to know what do you think about what we can do better for the future, because this Erasmus Plus project is only a project. and we had 64 university, and we were saying like a good picture of what is happening in Europe. But of course, we are talking about thousands of universities around Europe, and what do you expect from the administration, or what we can do better in order to standardize? Of course, we don't want to be uniform, but to standardize the conditions so the students with disabilities can travel and can take mobility programs through Europe without the problems and without the fear and the uncertainty that we were talking before.
Yeah, I think one of the main things is working more closely together, having more opportunities like this to have discussions between the universities and also between all the members of community, because sometimes things are decided within management or according to, of course, studies and research, and that's good. But I think it's not enough, because we have to find a way to make management decisions and also legislation to feel, in a sense, people have to feel that really answers to what they need in everyday life. And that, I think, and for that, to be able to do that better, we need everyone on board. We need everyone to test what we are doing. We need the feedback from people, of course, people within management and people within governments that are, producing all this this legislation and these standards, and of course they also need to realize what is the specific experience of people within classes, within the walls of university. So they need to understand that in order to improve the way they build policies. So I think this is a very interesting thing for the future, to have management, not only experts from disability services and people that are already working on universal design and other tools to make environments and communities more welcome within a place, but also management needs to realize and to know all these experiences. I think in the future that would be a very great way of like planning new action, and these discussions are really very important.
Just from a probably more practical, not practical, but on the ground point of view, I'm thinking of what can we do next with this to get that information out there. And when I do have students who want to go to Erasmus and they identify the college they're going to, I then have to Google and find someone's name and try and make contact. I wonder something very simple out of this project is that the colleges that were involved in this all agree a standard email address for their own college, and it could be University for All or whatever it is, but that I know if I email that in Porto, I'll get the person I need to get. Could be something very practical, very simple, but it would mean then this project keeps going and makes a real difference to us on the ground and to those students.
Yeah, I completely agree, and actually that was one of the reasons that we created the program. When something that I didn't say is that when we understood that financial support was an issue after the study, we in Fundación Once we created a program of scholarships to give funds to the students with disabilities to participate in that. And after that, with all these years of programs, of course, we are really close to the students that have the scholarships. And one of the things they say is, imagine me here in Spain, trying to look online. If the university I am going is providing everything that I need, right? So what I do, I try to contact someone. And I go there and it's a phone number, I call, and it's a service, and they say, well, I will pass you with someone else, and with someone else. And so that's really crazy. So it's really basic, And maybe you are thinking, well, that's a really basic thing, but we don't have it in the real
Yeah, we
world.
don't have.
So, and something that Alice was saying is we need everyone on board, right? And so something that we have seen in the universities is that sometimes the management of the university, the dean, the rector, they are really onto, and also the unit for people with disabilities are into, but sometimes maybe the professors are not. So the question is, what do you do in your university to make sure that all these actors play an active role in accessibility and inclusion of persons with disabilities?
Okay, so many years ago we established what was called the Disability Steering Group. Now it's since evolved into other things. When I started in the role about 18 years ago, I thought I was doing a great job. And then I was asked, how high should a ramp be? How wide should it be? What is the gradient? And I really felt I was really letting the job down, that I didn't know those answers. And certainly I started researching, okay, now I was looking at building regulations. And over the course of a couple of years, I realised actually I didn't have to have all the answers. I can run a service, I can manage staff, I can make sure the students get reasonable accommodations, but I didn't need to have all the answers. And certainly in the past, the university would have looked to me to have all the answers. Anything to do with disability, and I'm sure some of you practitioners will experience that if anybody rings the university and mentions the word disability, it doesn't matter what it is, it will come to my office, and then we need to then, find who answered it. So when I realised that it wasn't, I didn't have to have all the answers, and that actually really the architects and the engineers should know this. I was able then to throw it back to them to say, well, actually, I don't have that answer, and it's okay that I don't have that answer, but I can tell you where to find that answer. I can tell you where the Part building regulations are. I can tell you who to talk to in the States. And so from that, we developed a disability steering group that brought in all the players that we felt was important within the university. And I'm sure many of you have this. So we had representatives from estates who would look after all the buildings, would look after security. We had representatives from the library, from our computer technical services. We had representatives from academia. We had professors, we had lecturers. Usually those representatives came because they had an interest in it, not because they were made. the others were made, really comes it on it. From that, we discussed the challenges that we're having and started to educate them into the ways of disability and accessibility, and use the knowledge that we had, they were able to apply to their own areas. What has happened now, that was many years ago, that disability steering group no longer exists. It progressed into an equality steering group, and now it's gone into an EDI, and it's not so much on the ground, because what's happening on the ground is the states are looking after accessibility. Library are now looking after accessibility. They may ring us and they may ask us for advice, but often I'll hear something wonderful is happening around accessibility, and it wasn't our idea, and I get very excited. So it is about that ownership, and it is about we're all in this together, and I can't, we have 19,000 students in DCU, I can't be there for everything. And, we're only one little team, so you do have to share this out. But by sharing it out, then you get the knowledge that our engineers have or our scientists have that we have never thought about. So you need to get them around the table first. And while, hopefully with senior management and that, we obviously have the backing to ensure students are included. Really, you want the people on the ground, and then they can feed up. But it is about getting them around the table and making sure that they realise that they do have a part to play in this, but also around staff training. So we would have offered disability awareness training to academics over the years, and it was called disability awareness training, and the uptake wasn't particularly high. Given about 2,500 staff, we might be lucky to get 20 or 30 to attend. So again, we have to rethink this and go, we need the academics, the teaching staff to know about inclusion and know about how their students need them to provide their documentation, their notes in advance, record lectures, whatever it might be. So what I did was I approached each school individually, so the School of Psychology or the School of Electronic Engineering, and I said to them, look, I will come and give a presentation on your students, the students that are in your class, and how their difficulties and the challenges they face in your class and how you can help them. And actually that proved much more effective. It was a very short presentation, but we got into the staff meetings, into the monthly meetings that they had. And once we were telling them about their own students, they could connect and they could see, actually, yes, I do have 6 students who have sight loss, and I need to know what I need to do around that. And so they were able to connect rather than a general disability awareness, which it's come full circle. We now do both. So I'm still doing disability awareness, but more about our service and what we can do for the staff within the university. But they were able to connect. So it's about getting people around the table and getting a connection for them so that they know, oh, well, this actually has something to do with me. Because if they don't see it and they don't think it's for them, then they won't have any interest, to be brutally honest.
Thank you so much, Anne. I don't have to tell you that while Anne was talking, Alice was smiling and feeling related with everything that Anne was saying, right? So Anne was saying that everything came to her office in a point. You say that. So is that your experience? And also maybe you can tell us what innovative tools you have created to overcome the situation. Thank you.
Well, yes, of course. I think we all have, when we really get together, we all have similar experiences. And that was something that I really wanted to add to what Anne just said now. And also Gerald mentioned that it is really, I would like to highlight here the importance, because we are in a society of knowledge. So knowledge is everywhere. We know a lot, so there's a lot to know, and you can find information everywhere about accessibility, about disability, about inclusion, about equity. It's everywhere, and you can access it very easily. The point is what you do with that information. So what do you actually do? How do you relate to that? What experiences do you have from all those concepts and all that knowledge that we have around us? So I think that's the main issue. And I believe that we have invested, along with not a very large team of people within the University of Porto, but still very effective. What we tried to do was actually to work with people with this knowledge and make them have real experiences on what efforts people with disabilities have to make in order to just be a student and study here. And when other students sit beside a student like this, know more about their lives, how they work, how they live, how they access information, what difficulties that person has to do sometimes such a simple thing like going to the bathroom, for example. And when people realize that, and when our students realize that, then they start having great ideas and they start to innovate, and they start to plan and design products and strategies in order to include everyone. And that's when knowledge actually becomes useful. It's when you have an experience of what actually means all these tons of information that you have access to. And this is something that we are trying to do, not only with the students, but also with services and also with management. Of course, Uni for All was a very interesting tool because we use it like that. Of course, I could, since I'm here for 27 years, or I could answer all the questions, but instead I chose to give the questions to all these different services and people that were related with those indicators. And when they tried to answer it, they also realized what they were not doing or what they were not doing so well. And that also helped to, take a step forward, try to at least see, they at least make the effort to see what can I do to improve? So what actions can I actually make to put into practice to improve this? And I think this is very interesting. So it is really interesting. The effective part of all of this, it's really a major part of all of this. So you really have to experience. And I was going to say, oh yes, and I highlight the panel 4 of this afternoon. It's just, unfortunately, it's just an in-person panel, but it's a very, it will be a moment of showing what that work is actually resulted in. So it's going to be a really possibility of experiencing the results of people living with diversity, of students living with other students with disabilities, and how all these experiences have produced new things, new perspectives, new ways of solving old problems. So I invite you to come in this afternoon because this is going to really be a very interesting.
So if you were thinking in escaping this afternoon, now you have a date there because it's going to be really interesting. And thank you, Alice. And Gerald, as of 28, June 28 in 2025, customers will be able to file complaints before national courts and or authorities if services or products do not respect the new rule. So what roles should the universities play in all this new situation? How do you see it?
Yeah, at a practical level, working with students for many years myself, one of the big issues on going to other universities in Europe is access to books. So a key part of the European Accessibility Act is e-books now being a fundamental right under the European Accessibility Act. So we would have dealt with students in my previous life where they were going to university, even in the UK, very close to us, and they had no access to books for the first semester, second semester in university. So I think from a practical point of view, I think that's going to be a significant advancement for students to be able to travel across Europe and have access to the books that are on that course, whatever university they're in. But a call out to all educators. There are 8 standards being developed which will underpin the European Accessibility Act. We lead out in Ireland with the National Standards Authority. So anyone who wants to participate, the committees are open and recommend in any country to get involved in the standards because they will be the key linchpins that will underpin the European Accessibility Act, as you heard from Emma in the introduction. So two things to, as you said, where's the follow-on to this? The University Design Conference is in Oslo in 3 weeks' time. It's a hybrid event, so people can sign up to see that there's several papers and keynotes looking at education as part of that, but also the European Access Network, which is another network of universities across Europe. And the 2025 conference is in Galway in June 2025. So we can continue the conversation in Ireland in 2025. So.
Great. So, Gerard, if I am a university, if I am representing a university and I hear complaints in front of a court or authorities of any kind, I will be a little bit, I don't know if terrified, but fear is going to be in my body. So, what do you recommend the universities to prepare themselves to this? I see it as an opportunity, but what do you recommend?
Well, again, back to the standards. That's where all the meat of what the Act is going to rely on implementation. The other is to find out who are the market surveillance authorities in your country. In Ireland, we have 6 market surveillance authorities, so it is the Consumer Protection Commission in Ireland that will receive complaints on the lack of accessibility to IT products, services, etc. The Aviation Authority is the other one, which is on looking at transport and particularly aviation, which is another huge concern for students with disabilities, and there are several others. So what I would be recommending is find out who your market surveillance authorities are in each of your countries, because they will be the ones who will be receiving the complaints, or where you could pass the complaint on to, because the product coming into your country, it is up to the market surveillance authority to certify that it is accessible as of the 28th of June next year.
Thank you so much. And so we have 20 minutes, and I would like to make questions to the 3 of you, just 2 questions, and then we are going to open to a Q&A with the public. So the first question is, if you could make one immediate change at the universities to advance in accessibility and inclusion, what this change will be? One, immediate.
E-books.
E-books, okay.
That was quick. That's one, but it might have a few words. That it would be a core component in any teaching role in the university, that they have either a university design qualification or can demonstrate they use UDL practices. So in order to get a teaching role in the universities, UDL has to be part of that job description. Yeah.
Well, I would select, well, after all that I've said, which I find very important, to feel what we are saying. Another very important thing would be to have robust knowledge on the community. So be able to gather information on what consequences policies and practices are having on the community, not only students, but also staff and teachers. Trying to gather information on how people feel, if they're feeling discriminated, in what sense, in what areas, what is happening to people. So I think it's very important for universities to have really robust and thorough knowledge on their community, the diversity of the community, the diversity of needs, the diversity of ways of working and participating. How is the community actually participating within the university, not only in management positions, but also in everyday life? So I think information of this sort, where you really then can take action, not on what you feel it's important, but on what people actually say they need. So I think this is also a very important
Alice,
part.
this robust knowledge that we were talking before is related with this project that you had in the University of Porto of the observatory.
Yes,
Can you tell us a little bit? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes. So with all that was going on, and of course the need to really build policies and also practices that could actually answer the needs of the community, we developed within a project a design of an observatory of innovation and inclusion. And the main idea of this observatory that we have developed is to know more about the community. So what ages we have, what experiences we have, how do people learn, how do people are learning with the actual conditions that the university offers. People, how many people we have from different cultural backgrounds, how many people we have with disabilities, what kind of disabilities, how is this bringing additional efforts to the everyday lives of the people. So this is what we have so far. It's just the design. We are in this next few years planning to implement this design, but we feel that this is a really critical tool for our university in order to take action based on what we know, what we really know, and what people are telling us they need. So
Thank you so much. And so we are going to start again with Gerald, and then I will ask Anne and Alice to respond the same question, and is, how do you envision the collaboration between universities, but also governments and the private sector to assure the accessibility in the universities?
Yeah, without harping on about it, the European Accessibility Act, again, is a key tool. But the rationale for the European Accessibility Act is to create a common market across Europe. It is the first Accessibility Act that is engaged or requires the private sector to be directly involved. So this is quite a landmark when we talk about European legislation. So private sector involved, the government are involved because they have to implement the legislation. And of course, the universities are the practitioners. So they're very much intertwined, the whole three constituents. And I think there will be significant development over the next 4 to 5 years as, all going well, the implementation of the Act is uniform, which is one of the reasons for this EU Accessible Hub, that it is a uniform approach across Europe on the implementation of the Act.
And for example, in Spain, we have legislation about the private sector and about the universities and the government when we are talking about people with disabilities, right? But we have seen that we can have the legislation, but this doesn't mean that it's going to happen. That is, so what would you say directly to the private sector in this matter? What do you think that is the immediate change now that we are coming with immediate change that they need to do, like to change their imaginary framework?
Well, we're seeing it particularly with some of the big companies. If we talk to the likes of Microsoft and Google headquarters in Dublin in Ireland, and then they see this from a reputation perspective, as in that they're doing the right thing, but also they see a huge market opportunity here on developing products that are accessible. It definitely creates a bigger market because no matter how able-bodied we all are, we definitely have kinks in our own system. So having products that are more accessible means that there are bigger sales for the private sector. Microsoft, Google, etc. They've seen this 30 years ago, particularly with the American Disability Act. They saw it as a huge, but also the key element, back to the European Accessibility Act last time, the huge onus on the government on procuring accessible products, and who is the biggest procurer in any country is the government. So back to, we have to be educating our public servants what is accessibility, because our engagement with, we can write it in to a procurement document, but we've no idea on assessing is the tenderer actually being able to deliver on accessibility. So this is back to you educators to actually ensure that the new graduates are all experts on accessibility.
Thank you so much. And
again, from a practical point of view, and working on the ground, the majority of programmes in DCU have a work placement element. And as a result of that, we have students with disabilities who go out and work placement. And what has happened and what has evolved over the years is we are now engaging with these companies and we're providing training to them around how to support that student, how to include that student, which then results in how they include and support their own staff. So something that happened on an individual basis has now grown and has become, much bigger. So from that point of view, we're in a good position in that, and there are some quite large companies. There's also smaller, smaller private companies that we work with as well. And each year now we roll out neurodiversity training. We just hold it once a year. We invite these companies in and their reps, and they come into the university, and it's the benefit for our students, obviously, but then also benefits the company further. I think the relationship and the collaboration between ourselves and the government and private companies, I just want to give you one example, and it's through funding from the government, a project led by Dr. Deirdre Corby in the School of Nursing in DCU received funding from the government to set up what was called the Ability Programme, and it was an employment placement programme for students with intellectual disabilities. So students with intellectual disabilities coming into third level in Ireland is still very, very new. This programme focused on interview techniques, CVs, that type of thing, but it also provided employment placement to those students on the campus. So we're a small town. We have different businesses, we have a cafeteria, we have a library, and so from the funding from the government allowed the School of Nursing to create this programme, which gave these students with intellectual disabilities jobs within the companies within the university. So if we can think more of that and think more joined up and be given opportunities, we can affect outside of the university and make a difference in that regard.
Thank you so much, Alice.
Yes, well, I don't have much more to add. I think I agree with everything that was said. I would just highlight this aspect, which is offer activities and promote activities that actually bring all these people together, to create more demonstration effects where we can show what university is actually doing, what projects it is developing, and to make companies and also governments more familiar with the needs and what is being done. I think that's one of the major issues, is that we know theoretically, but we need to put experiences, products, people. You need to put faces into all of this knowledge, and also products in all of this knowledge, so that you realize by experiencing how can you actually put all this into place, and how can policies reflect all this, how can practices reflect all this. So getting together, having opportunities for people to get together and show what they are doing, and inviting other people to add more knowledge to what we are doing, I think this could be a very good thing.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for being here. I think that it was a great conversation, so thank you so much. And we have 10 minutes for a Q&A. So we have a question there. Yes. Thank you. Can you see it, Karen?
Good morning. Thank you for an excellent presentation. It was very interesting to hear the various perspectives. I am interested to know in how you engage persons with disabilities in the development of the standards, because obviously the motto is nothing about us without us. And I've heard a lot about researchers and universities and foundations, but very little about how persons with disabilities actually engaged in the development of those standards. And my second question is, how do you envision that the work that you are doing is going to go beyond the disability field? Because obviously universal design and accessibility is for all. It's not just for persons with disabilities. So if I am a student who does not have a disability, but is a student who prefers to have an audiobook instead of a textbook, how do I go about getting the book, accessing that tool that I need to make myself a better student? Thank you.
I really want to thank your questions. It's really important that we tell that fact that we did it at the beginning. So I will let Alice. Do you want to answer?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yes, so some of the partners of the project were actually institutions that represent people with disabilities, and of course, some of the members that participated from those organizations were also themselves people with disabilities. So we had on that side that input of those people. And also, because it was mentioned here, EDF was one of the organizations, ONCE was another. And also our panel of experts were all people with disabilities. So from different disabilities, different needs, but they were all actually people with disabilities. So I think that was addressing the second part of the question. Our project, of course, we aim at a university for all. We are focusing on a uni for all, which was a product, a tool that was really focused on disability, which is a part of all the diversity that we can find within the university. But we felt the need to work that group in particular, because of course there's a lot of disadvantages on other diversities and other diverse groups. There are other vulnerable groups, but we felt that this group in particular really needed to be addressed, particularly in mobility, but also in other subjects. So we needed to really focus on those particular needs. Of course, some of those indicators and needs that we were trying to address with this tool can also apply to other diversities and other vulnerable groups, and it's very easy to make to apply some of the measures also to those people. But in this project, but there are other developments. For example, I just learned about a toolkit of University for All, which aims of diversity, not just a particular group, which was also very interesting to know that tools like that are also being developed, and more broadened tools for those vulnerable groups. But in this particular project, that was what we were addressing, this focusing on this group of people.
Just on standards at national and European level. In Ireland, all our committees, we have DPOs, disabled persons organisations, people with disabilities. The huge issue is at European level, as in to fund, and as mentioned there, European Disability Forum have raised this on numerous occasions with the European standards bodies, that it's very expensive, because you're talking about travel to Brussels, but also the inaccessibility of a lot of the standards is a huge concern. So we have raised these on numerous occasions with European standards bodies, but in Ireland we do have on a couple of our standards, leaders are people with disabilities on the standards work.
Yeah, I just want to add that when we were creating the project, we also thought the possibility, and it's in the to-do list, but you know how these projects are. Of course, the platform can be useful for other students that maybe they don't have disability, they are not people with disabilities, but they can use it, as you were saying before. Maybe it is useful. So it's about dissemination, and it is something that we are going to try to do in the future. But like I say, the to-do list is longer. So there were two questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for your presentation, wonderful presentation. Well, just to add to this relevant question of topic, today we have here a class So there are many people that are here are future designers, and one of the relevant things that we need to tackle in this practice of design as a process is the participatory design. So engage people through the process of design is a relevant practice. And so conducting the project not for people, but with the community, involving directly different potential users, and maybe also the extreme users as well, to work with us. I think that would answer to a lot of problems that we feel in our daily life. Okay, just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bruno.
That's right.
I think that we have time for 2 more questions. This one and another one, right?
The chat has worked for online.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't have a question. I just would like to confirm what the draft said earlier. I'm Roberta, represent EPF. I work for the European Disability Forum, and we are in a different standardization committee. Myself personally, I represent EPF, the JCT 12 Design for All Committee, and yeah, we raised this issue. Sometimes, especially for instance, for the built environment community standardization, we have experts because we need the tech. Sometimes we need the technical knowledge, and the EDF staff sometimes doesn't really have the technical knowledge. For this the new standardization for the JTC12 design for all, we don't have an expert because it really depends also about the budget, but we try our best. We give our comments, we give our suggestions, and we try. And I know there will be open a call for the Design for All committee to involve more users with disabilities. So we are making this call. We try our best to involve and to represent people with disabilities in this committee. And it's really, sometimes really difficult because the standards can be very technical and difficult, and just people run away. So we try to keep and make the standard language easier for everyone.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now you can tell me what we do. So we have questions from the chat, right?
It's another one in person question.
Yeah, my question is to do with the dissemination and communication side of things. I think it's fantastic that there's this platform and product, but I'm wondering if that has kind of flipped around at all in terms of how, I think of like the prospective student experience and how they research which post-secondary institution they go to, and whether that's changed how schools are promoting, if you will, what services they have available. Anna referenced that even she had trouble finding the contacts in other post-secondary institutions, and so I'm wondering whether that going through this process has changed the way campus recruitment or even accessibility services are being more transparent about what they are doing well and what they aren't, so that students can do. If I'm thinking as a student, I'm going to be going directly to the university's website to research what they have available on campus. How is it? And obviously, accessibility is part of that. And so I'm wondering if it's changed the amount of information that's being shared to prospective students.
It's good you asked that question. Only this year, this was the first year that our service was invited to give a talk to incoming Erasmus students. We've never done that before, I don't know why. But our Erasmus placement office invited students who were planning on coming to DCU in September, and we gave a talk about the supports that were available. And as a result, we have definitely seen an increase in students engaging with our service. So that certainly for our university, there is an increasing focus on international students, and so with that, they have not demanded, that's probably too strong a word, but they've requested that we do have that information available more readily, that it's out there and that it's easily accessible. So it's funny you asked that question, because this was the first year we did it and it's definitely made an impact on those students engaging with us. But there's more we can still do in that space, definitely. Thank you.
Also, just to go back to what Roberta said here from EDF, the Design for All standard, which is being revised at the moment, is all about how an organisation can include a diverse population, but also from leadership right down to process procedures. So I would highly recommend people looking at that standard that could be applied at university level, because it clearly sets out and it's directly mapped onto the ISO 9000 quality management, which, because we don't want it separate from what people would be already doing anyway as part of their quality ISO 9000 series. So good one, Roberta.
Questions?
I'm sorry, I do have a question. Thank you, before that, thank you for your presentation. My question was, which were the biggest problems that you were having when implementing this project, and why do you think that reason is an indicator how that was a problem? I think there could be these factors is very interesting, and how we could implement this, or for example, the design, and the design could be a resource or a form to resolve problems.
Well, it's good.
I will answer first, and of course we are going to complement each other, but I will say that something that was really difficult when we were implementing the project was to convince the university to fill the questionnaire, right? And so it was really, like I was saying before, it was really big, 38 indicators. At the end, we had to pick 14, so the universities could feel like more into it. And of course, this was not because the universities didn't want to do it. It was because it needs a lot of time. And like Anne was saying before, everything that is about disabilities come to the office, and they were the responsible of filling this. And also we were asking many parts of the questionnaire that were not depending on the office that helps people with disabilities. We were asking responses from the rectors, the deans, etc. So that was an issue for us.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Of course, also sometimes leveling concepts and information. Yes. So that's why we felt the need to build a glossary, to ask for evidence. But, and I think maybe I'm understanding it wrongly, but what you are trying to also ask is, in what sense could design help to make answering easier? So that's a very good question, because we with all these indicators, what we actually do was develop a sort of an automatic questionnaire where we tried to make it as easy as possible for people to, for institutions to actually answer, give answers, and then receive results on what their answers were, so that they could be able to realize what areas they needed to improve. And that particular tool needs improvement, because if we could make it more interactive, or more attractive, even more easy to use, as a tool,
Yes.
that would make a huge difference, not only on the time that you take to answer all these indicators, but also on how you could also learn regarding concepts and information that you could learn by just answering all that. So in terms of design, I think that would be a very interesting way to explore. And we are willing to gather more help.
And actually, I have to say that for this kind of projects, the tool was really innovated at the beginning. Because as university, you can go, complete the questionnaire, and you have the response immediately where you are. And that was really innovated at the beginning. But right now, that we need the universities to understand how they are doing and to follow their process, we are not providing like a agile tool to measure their improvement
along the time.
along the time. And that's like Alice was saying, that's one of the biggest issues.
Yeah.
So we have time for one more question. It's coming from the chat.
Yeah, we received several questions from people participating online. Maybe I'm going to raise one of them now. For the panelists, what practical strategies would you recommend for training university teaching staff so that they feel really motivated to go the extra mile for students and actively foster inclusivity? Specifically, what can be done to ensure that inclusivity becomes a core part of their approach to teaching and student engagement? If one of you want.
$1 million question.
I'll start with just a little suggestion. We have a teaching enhancement unit within the university, which their focus is on improving practice of teaching amongst the teaching staff. And about 7-8 years ago, we approached them in relation to universal design, and we kick-started that whole universal design around the teaching element. So I think if you want to improve the teaching experience of students, you need to work with the people who are coordinating that, who are running workshops, who are monitoring quality. So for us, it's really imperative that we have a good working relationship with the teaching enhancement unit, and again, kickstart them with ideas. So I think would there be something similar in other colleges and universities? Would there be?
Well, there's, I think there's no silver bullet or a real answer that can fit at all, but we're not talking about one thing fits all. So we're talking about diversity here. So there's a lot of efforts that were being done really at the university. There's of course the teaching innovation service that is providing several trainings on different subjects for teachers. We are now this university, we are in a phase where we are changing professors. We have a very high rate of age. So our professors are quite old, so we are in the stage of changing that now. And training has been very interesting. Training on these subjects is also something that we are investing, which is also interesting. And because of all that, we also have right now a new project involving different universities from the north of the country, which is called Innov North. And one of the axes of this project is actually universal design and inclusion in teaching and learning. This is a very huge area of the project, which is just starting, and one of the tools that they are building with this, besides being something that is being built between different universities, which is something very positive, because we can benefit from the experiences of other universities that have already more experience than we have in these subjects. We're also trying to build a laboratory of assistive technology to serve as training for teachers within the faculty, but also for students in different areas, especially future teachers in different areas, so that they know more about tools, know how to integrate those tools into practice, into teaching. So, as I said, there's no silver bullet, I believe. So there's attempts that are being done, and I think there's very strong attempts, very robust attempts towards more experience, not only knowledge, but also experience of people involved in teaching and learning processes.
Just on one at the Thomas Tobin, people may know, American, is a book called Universal Design Plus One.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with giving an example to fellow lecturers on, I did a great class and I did the following, and it saved me loads of time and the students really enjoyed. So UD plus one.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. I think that we are on time, well, more or less. So thank you so much, and thank you all.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.